Starting a brand new series today called Twister, and it's Oklahoma and it's springtime, and I hope there's nothing prophetic about this. So I can tell you where I was April 26th of 1991. I know that's a random date out of nowhere. You probably have no idea where you were. Some of you weren't even born, but I was playing a gig in Pryor, Oklahoma. And as I left the theater, like it just felt weird. You ever had that day where you just like go outside and you're like, oh, this don't feel right, this don't feel good. And holy Moses, like there were clouds that were just building and so on and so forth. And as I tried to get home, actually there were several roads that were closed. And so I'd have to turn around and go back around. I had to actually weave my way. And when you live out in the country, you know all the country roads and the back roads. And so I finally wound my way to get home. And my dad, who worked for the highway department, Department of Transportation, back then they got to take their work cars home. And it had all those lights on it and stuff. And when I pulled in my driveway, Dad's car was not where Dad's car normally was. He was gone. And we didn't have cell phones then. I mean, they were a thing, but not everybody had them. I don't even know what we did. Like, what did you do in the bathroom? I don't know, right? And so I pull up, and my mom, Mom didn't do this, but like she comes running out of the garage and like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, but I couldn't get home. Like, what happened? I was listening to the radio, and there's like a storm and stuff, and a tornado had ripped through my hometown of Ulaga. And my high school got hit, and it got hit hard. A couple of pictures are going to pop up on the screen in the back. That's like debris. That was the band room. That was the high school band room, and it was basically just gone. One of my best friends, he and his family were home. They were right square in the direct path of this. And there was James, his two sisters, and his mom and dad, and they were in the bathtub with a mattress on top of them. I don't know if you've ever walked up to a home that was under construction and it was just the slab with a few pipes sticking out. The next morning, the following morning, the Saturday morning when we went to go check on some of our friends, we went by the Boland's house and it was a clean slab, like a new construction, except for a bathtub where they were. It beat all I'd ever seen. I didn't see the tornado. I just saw the aftermath. And there were people that were trying to loot home sites, and I kid you not, and there were horses and cows that were stuck in trees. It was an F4, and it was just absolutely devastating. I'm 46 years old. I've lived in Oklahoma my whole life except for 2 years when I was a foreign missionary in Louisiana. I've never seen a tornado in person. Anybody in here actually seen a live tornado? Anybody actually run out on the front porch when you hear the sirens going off? I know that you crazies up in here, right? I've lived in Oklahoma when I was a kid in Antlers, Oklahoma. We owned a Western auto store that was downtown right on the strip, and our competition across the street was Otasco. And it was Sunday night, and back in those days, after church on Sunday night, you either went to somebody's home or you had somebody come to your home. It was our turn. And so we had all these people in our home, and like the tornado sirens start going off, and we open windows, which is what you're supposed to do. Of course, my dad standing out on the front porch, and you could just hear. I was a little bitty kid, and I was scared. The next morning we went down. Otasco's roof had been lifted off. Haha, that's what you get for being our competition. Problem is, their roof was now in our store. It was crazy. It was wild. I lived in Oklahoma almost my whole life, and I've never seen a tornado in Oklahoma. I had to go to Mississippi. That's where I saw my first tornado. I was about to get on an airplane in Gulfport, Mississippi, and we were loading up the flight to come home. And you know how airports have a lot of big glass windows, and you can see. And it was looking weird and kind of stormy. And then all of a sudden, you see some leaves dusting up over there, and this thing kind of looks like a finger sticking down. And they're loading the airplane, and I'm thinking, I don't think I want to get on that airplane right now. You know, I just might miss this flight. Think I'll take the next one. Y'all go ahead. I'm fine. Actually, they completely deboard the whole airplane because sure enough, about 400 yards off out there, little bitty tornado. Wasn't anything. It was an F0. Wasn't a big thing. But I'm like, I've lived in Oklahoma my whole life. I've never seen an Oklahoma tornado. And had to go to Mississippi to see my first tornado. I mean, we all have our own stories about seeing the war zone the day after. Some of them are frightening stories. Some of them are stories of maybe you've lived through hurricanes or torrential rains, all kinds of stories. And sometimes the worst storms in life have nothing to do with weather. They just come out of nowhere and knock you completely off your feet. We find ourselves just trying to hang on through life. So what I want to do for the next few weeks, I want to look at a famous Bible character, and he endured not only the biggest storm of his life, but he endured the biggest storm of all history. And we tell Noah's story to our kids, and it's in the children's Bible. And God told Noah to build him an arky, God, and the animals came twosies by twosies, right? And so we kind of take the soft side of Noah's story and we tell it to our kids. Some of you probably, when your kids were born, their nursery was in the Noah theme or whatever. We make the jokes about Noah. Noah, why did you have to let cats on board? You know what I'm saying? That's a good one. Snakes, Noah, what were you thinking? Mosquitoes, what are you doing, bro? All you had to do was just twice, and you'd been done. And saved all of humanity that misery, right? So we make the jokes about Noah. We lighten the story about Noah. Noah's mentioned 7 times in different books of the Bible. He's mentioned in 2 Peter. He's mentioned in Hebrews chapter 11 in the faith chapter. But over the next couple of weeks, we're going to unpack in the book of Genesis, from Genesis chapter 6 all the way to chapter 11. So if you've got your Bible, Genesis is easy to find. It's the first book in the Bible. If not, we'll put the words up on the screen. And I just want to take the next few weeks and talk about this storm, this flood that Noah endured, and talk about, like when we go through the storms in our life, how we can have peace. And so Genesis chapter 6, I want to begin with verse 9. It says, "This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man. He was the only blameless person living on earth at that time, and he walked in close fellowship with God. Noah was the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now God saw the earth had become corrupt, and it was filled with violence. God observed all this corruption in the world, for everyone on earth was corrupt. So God said to Noah, I've decided to destroy all living creatures, for they have filled the earth with violence. Yep, I will wipe them all out along with this earth." Verse 14. "So build a large boat from cypress wood and waterproof it with tar inside and out. Then construct decks and stalls throughout its interior. Look, I'm about to cover the earth with a flood that will destroy every living thing that breathes. Everything on earth will die." I want to jump verse 18. "But I will confirm my covenant with you, so enter the boat, you and your wife and your sons and their wives." In verse 22, probably the most powerful verse of Genesis chapter 6, it said, "So Noah did everything exactly as God had commanded him." Now, I do my best to obey the voice and leading of God. I do my best to follow the peace of God, but to do everything exactly as God had commanded him, now that's a good guy right there. I mean, it said he was righteous in his own time. In a world full of corruption, wickedness, and evil, Noah stood righteous. He did everything exactly the way that God had him, told him. Noah's story has a lot of good in it. That's why we turn it into a nursery story for our children. Noah is actually a foreshadowing of Jesus Christ. Like through Noah, through one man, God saved humanity. That's a foreshadowing of Christ. Through Jesus Christ, fully human, fully God, through one man, God saved or gave an opportunity for all humanity to be saved. We celebrate his obedience. We celebrate his goodness. We celebrate his righteousness. But there's also a lot of pain and tension in Noah that we're going to unpack over the next couple of weeks. In this story, if you look at what's not said, if you look at some things that were just understood culturally in context when Moses wrote this, and I think Moses, when he wrote the book of Genesis, he didn't want to focus on the bad. He didn't want to focus on the tension because this was a horrific time in world history. He instead focused on Noah's obedience. He focused on the good stuff. He focused on God's grace, that God would reach down and choose Noah. And that's why we have these powerful lines. It says that Noah found grace, or Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Man, that's a beautiful verse. Noah did everything that God commanded. Let's focus on that. Let's focus on Noah's righteousness and obedience. Chapter 8, verse 1. And God remembered Noah. But in the same token, I think the context of the story can speak to us. I'm going to preach a little bit today from the white space of Genesis chapter 6. Like sometimes it's between the period of the last sentence and the white space between the capital letter of the next sentence. Or maybe it's in the margins of the Bible. It's just sometimes out of the context of what is spoken. I think sometimes that there's some things that can challenge us and build our faith. Genesis chapter 6 culminates with that one verse. So Noah did everything exactly as God had commanded him. Wow, that kind of faith, to do that, the kind of faith to make that happen. And I want to look at the faith of Noah. As we start this series, I want to look at the faith of Noah and even apply it to ours. Like sometimes our faith might match up with his, maybe not, but there's 3 phases of Noah's faith today. You're going to see him go through this progression that as I back up and look at my life, I'm like, yeah, been there. Oh, yeah, I might be right there. Oh, yeah. And so there's 3 phases. The first one is the phase of foolishness. Sometimes faith looks absolutely foolish. Genesis chapter 6 paints a very grim picture of the corruption on the earth. How far into moral decay humanity had fallen. Like, I didn't even read the first 3 verses of Genesis chapter 6 because it's weird. Like, we don't even really know what actually all of it means, and there's this debate about theologically what's going on, and we do know that society had just become sexually depraved. And so there's some theories that the angels who were kicked out of heaven with Lucifer, they're now, we would call demons or fallen angels. There's theories that they were engaging in intercourse with humans, and then there came this other. We don't know. We don't know what's all that, so I just kind of skipped it. I do know in the middle of all this depravity and this immorality, Noah does something foolish. He goes out in the middle of a field and he starts cutting down trees and he starts building a boat. Now, in that day, not only was Noah just building, in another part of the Bible, it says that Noah was doing something else. 2 Peter 2, chapter 5. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 5. It says, if he, God, did not spare the ancient world when he brought the flood on its ungodly people, but he actually protected Noah. And then it describes Noah, a preacher or a herald or a proclaimer of righteousness, and 7 others. Noah not only was building this boat and cutting trees and milling lumber, but he was also proclaiming the truth about God. Listen, I'm building a boat here because it's going to get bad unless you turn. It's not turn or burn. It's like turn or drown. I mean, it'd be different for him, right? But he's out and he's proclaiming the truth about God and how immoral the people had fallen. And it does not say this. This is in the white space, but I think you can make an assumption that when Noah was out proclaiming the truth about God and how wicked things had fallen and become, it doesn't say this, but I think it's a pretty safe assumption that wasn't well received. Because had it been well received, they would have built boats too. Had it been well received, people would have repented. Instead, it's probably a pretty safe assumption, Noah probably stood alone among some ridicule. What are you building, Noah? You're an idiot. Did your God tell you to build that boat? You know? And so to the world around Noah, he looked foolish. Sometimes faith looks foolish. Stand in a moment of worship. Sometimes that may look a little bit foolish. Writing a tithe check to the world around so that it doesn't understand what God has called and compelled us to do. Sometimes that may look foolish. And I'm sure that there were even times on the inside Noah thought, what am I doing here? I mean, my wife, she likes to make bean burritos. We have those a lot for dinner. Did I even really hear the voice of God, or is something just messing with me? Am I just dreaming here? Am I wishing that God would wipe out my neighbors? I mean, so there's probably this part of the time where he's working and cutting and doing all this that Noah himself probably felt foolish. There are times that faith looks foolish. Even Paul says this when it comes to the idea of Jesus. How you and I, who were sinners, through a bloody cross and an empty tomb, could have an open relationship with the creator of the universe, the God that said, let there be light, that you and I could be in relationship through him, through a cross. 1 Corinthians 1:18 says, for the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing. There's so many symbolic things about the ark that Noah was building to the cross, about it being a place of redemption, and being a place of safety. And sometimes faith looks foolish. As the storms of life come and you're holding on to your faith, when your feelings and your emotions just tell you to quit, give in, it's not going to rain. Sometimes we have to admit this feels a little bit crazy. And Noah built the ark. even if it felt foolish, even if those around him were laughing, "What are you doing, Noah? Idiot." Like, sometimes faith makes us look foolish. The second phase of faith that Noah walked through. Again, this is in the white space. I could get to heaven and Noah could go, "You remember that sermon you preached back there in 2020? You were wrong." It's true. He probably called me out. You know what I'm saying? I get a beat down when I get to heaven. But if Noah's a human, I think part of human nature is we have this, there's just this temptation to give into this. And it's fatigue. That the second phase of Noah's faith it's hard. Just fatigue. It's a big deal. He didn't have a skill saw. There was no Arc Depot that you went to and got screws. I mean, there was no cordless drill And so when you think about this, that Noah built the ark, it begs the question, how long did it take Noah to build the ark? They didn't have power tools. He had to cut down his own trees. He had to mill his own lumber. This sucker's about 4 stories tall. It's a football field and a half long. And it's half the width of a football field wide. It's huge. It's a massive, massive structure. So this is a big deal. I doubt anybody helped him. Matter of fact, they did anything, the people around him probably hindered him. Most likely it's Noah and his family. So how long, hey Siri, how long did it take Noah to build the ark? And so there's a couple of different theories out there, and did a lot of reading. One guy, he had all this math, and like my brain just exploded after reading it. I don't even know. But there's a huge, just a vast amount of theories on how long it took Noah. Some say it took him up to 55 years, and they base that a little bit on the age of his kids and when it says that kids were born and stuff. But there's another theory that says it took him 120 years. And then there's some say it's 75 or 100. So anywhere between 55 years and 120 years, it took Noah to build this ark. So this is a normal conversation around the Kellogg house. What are you doing tomorrow? And I know there probably should be a book that's written about the life and time adventures of Brent I know that, because there's stories of shoeless pro wrestler wannabe coworkers, right? And then there's stories of cow tipping when we were in high school, right? And then like the life and times of growing up like Huckleberry Finn when I was barefoot at Daisy, Oklahoma, right? I mean, so it's just, it would be a not bestseller, you know what I'm saying? So just imagine the conversation at Noah's house. What are you doing today, honey? I'm building a boat. You know what I'm doing tomorrow? I'm building a boat. You know what I'm doing next week? I'm building a boat. You just thought your job was boring, right? I mean, not just 5 years, not just 10 years or 25 years. Matter of fact, the average American retires after a working career of about 35 years. At 35 years, Noah wasn't even half done with building his boat. And I think Noah should be commended for his lifestyle. And I think Noah should be commended for his righteousness and his obedience. And he did exactly everything that God asked him to do. But we should just stop for a second and go, okay, here's a guy that when it got hard, he didn't give up. You know he got tired. You know there were times he wanted to quit. If I have to cut me down one more tree, I'm just going to let the flood take me out. You know what I'm saying? If I have to answer just one more time to one of my smart aleck boys, Dad, why are we building the boat anyway? This is stupid, right? Sometimes in the storms of life, we get tired. We want to quit. I'm bored of boats. I'm tired of cutting trees. And we have to stay focused on the calling that God has laid out before us. Verse 22, it says, Noah did everything exactly as God had commanded him. Sometimes you're 5 years in. You just got to keep building. Sometimes you're 15 years in, and it don't look like you thought it was going to look. You just keep swinging. And some of you, God's given you a big dream. He's given you a calling. He's put something on the inside of you, a place where life happens, and you're still milling lumber. You're still cutting down stinking trees. Just keep building. Some of you, your marriage is 20 years in now, and there's a temptation to get bored. You just keep building. You just keep working. When fatigue steps in, faith steps up. The third phase, finally. Finally. The day came when Noah hears a rumble in the bushes and it's a chinchilla. Oh no, there's two. There's lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my. Doop. Doop. Remember in 5th grade, 6th grade, there was always that one kid in class that could make it sound like a water drop by going, I can't do it that good. Remember that? Like, Noah's out there and he hears, oh, now you're going to start doing it. That was brilliant on my part. Doop. 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 Let's go! Everybody in the ark! Get your shoes on. I'm not going to tell you again or 4 more times. Shem, where is your mother? Go tell her right now, not 15 minutes from now. We're going to be dead in 15. That's it. Your mother's going to be the death of me, right? And the Bible doesn't say anything about the ark having a horn in it, so he probably had to emphasize. So I just kind of picture Noah kind of looking like a pirate with a monkey on his shoulder, and he grabs the tail of an elephant. You know what I'm saying? And that he's honking at his wife, get in the ark, we got to go. Doop. 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 There's that moment that it all paid off. This is in the white space. I think there's this moment for Noah that's just kind of his own personal moment of worship. It's probably pretty humbling. God, I don't know why you chose me. I don't know why you chose to spare me and my family. I don't know why you chose to give me a warning. Doop. Doop. Doom. But it finally came to pass. The thing that God said would happen, it happened. Genesis 7:15, it says, pairs of all creatures that have breath of life in them came to Noah, and they entered the ark. The animals going in were male and female, every living thing, and as God had commanded Noah. Then check this. Then the Lord shut them in. Noah did his part. And then God closed the door. God shut the door. So it's kind of interesting when you drill into Genesis. When I was in college at OSU, I led a men's Bible Sunday school class. And I had a guy that was like a doctor in some kind of science. I want to say it's biology. And so we were just going to walk through Genesis. And you can just imagine kind of the intimidation, but it was actually some very interesting conversation. We literally spent 3 weeks just on creation alone, about all the science and all that stuff. This guy was just a huge wealth of knowledge. It was fantastic. And there are some theories out there that it did not rain until the flood. The Bible doesn't declare that. The Bible doesn't say that. What it does say is that in the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve lived there, that it didn't need to rain. The ecosystem in the Garden of Eden was so perfect that they didn't have to go through storms. But you got to remember that Adam and Eve sinned, broke the deal, they got kicked out. So we don't know. We don't know if it rained. The flood is actually the first recorded rain, but we don't know. I mean, it's possible. You got to wonder. Did it ever rain on Noah while he's out there working? And just if it did, just imagine, like, he's only 20 years in. You know, he's only got the structure and it starts raining. And he's like, oh, Lord, come on, get those boards over here, kids. Let's go. We got a lot to do. We got 70 years worth of work to do in 15 minutes, right? But then as things get closer, and it wonder if it rained. I wonder if he had this thought. This is it. Well, Lord, go get your mama. Go get your mama. Y'all get them goats over here. Oh, the sun came out. False alarm. Just leave the goats alone. It's fine. Whew, I thought this was it. But finally, one day, it happened. And all those years of work, and all of that labor, and all of that doing the right thing, where'd all them chinchillas come from? Well, there's only 2 of them. Shem, why do you have an elephant following you? I don't know. It just showed up, Daddy. It's time. It's time. Here's the thing. Whether you do the math, whether it took Noah 55 years to build the ark or 120 years, they both feel the same. That is a lifetime of building. That's a lifetime of cutting, hammering. Both are incredibly difficult to stay focused and not give up and just keep building and just keep building. And I don't know today what hammer you're swinging. I don't know today what tree you're cutting down. I don't even know what year you're in your project. I'm going to share my life first with you. Galatians 6:9. It says, let's not get tired of doing what's good. I memorized it this way. Don't get tired of doing the right thing. Because at just the right time, you will reap a harvest of blessing if you don't give up. And I think as we start this journey with Noah over the next few weeks, I think it's important to stop and think about the years. This thing didn't just go up. 55, 60, 65, 70 years of just doing the right thing. Until finally, God's word came to pass. And I don't know who this is for today. Some of you have been swinging, you've been sawing, you've been cutting, you've been building, you've wanted to give up, you've wanted to give up, you want to give up. And today I'm here to tell you, I believe God got me in my car and got me here this morning to tell you, you keep on swinging that hammer. Don't you quit. Don't you give up. That promise is coming. It's coming. Don't you quit. You stay in the fight. You keep building, because the thing that he is building with your hands, something he wants to use to save lives.
Hey, thanks for watching this sermon on the Hillspring YouTube page. If you enjoyed it, take just a second, hit that subscribe button. That way you won't miss a single video. For more information about Hillspring, visit our website at hillspring.tv for times and location. We hope your faith was lifted and your life has been inspired with this message. Thanks again for watching.